Hi. So I have another scenario for you. This particular scenario, I'm actually going to upload two, but this particular scenario is about what we would refer to when I was superintendent as a special education issue. So let me kind of give you the scenario, then I'll ask you to pause it and you can kind of solve it yourself. So as superintendent, I received a notice in the mail about a lawsuit. And the lawsuit basically said that one of the students in a self-contained classroom, students who had very extreme special needs, had been raped by another student and nothing had been done. I had no knowledge of anything. It was the first time I'd heard anything about it at all. So my protocol was I contacted the principal and I said, I have a lawsuit that's been filed. I received a notice today, it was served, and you need to tell me what's going on. The principal of that particular school was as much in the dark as I was. He had no knowledge whatsoever. So he said, let me investigate and I'll get back with you as soon as I know something. So in a couple days, he came back to me and he said he absolutely had no evidence to support it whatsoever. So at that time, I have to assume that it's felonious, that it's a parent who thinks it's happened, or the worst scenario is a parent who sees it as an opportunity to make some money off of a disabled child. So we go to court. And in preparations for court, the attorney that represented us, that represented the Board of Education, called in, prior to depositions being served, some of the individuals who would have been in this classroom, particularly the classroom teacher, as well as an aide. During this questioning, I sat in the room and it became apparent to me that the aide, the teacher had left the classroom, and she admitted to that. She left the classroom and went to make a phone call. This was back before cell phones. And even if there were cell phones, they may not have been allowed to have them. So anyway, she had to go make a phone call, and so she left, and she left the teacher's aide in charge. The teacher's aide, what we found out was, had an online business. And so she was on the computer, instead of watching students, she was on her computer and was taking care of sales and doing some other things. Neither one of them could say without a shadow of a doubt that there was not a rape that occurred in the bathroom of that classroom, because neither one were paying attention. So I want you to think about what you would do next in this situation. So I'm going to ask you to pause, just hit the pause button, think about it for a little bit, then come back and I'll tell you the outcome of this particular incident. Welcome back. So in this particular situation, what happened was, it was apparent to me as a superintendent and very apparent to the principal that the fault was ours. There was no way that we could ever say that a rape did not occur. And there was no way to support ourselves. So as far as the law is concerned, we're guilty. It's not up to the other parties to prove that it happened. Although one of the students, and both of them were mentally impaired, so the one that supposedly was raped was unable to actually talk about it, but could tell some detail about what happened to him, and apparently had been able to make some indication to his mother. And it actually wasn't his mother. It was a foster mother that took in special needs children. So it was her understanding from the way he acted that there had been penetration. He was never taken to the doctor or a hospital to be examined, and it was too late for there to be any evidence of whether there was a rape or not. The other student was questioned and did seem very suspect. So at that point, it becomes kind of a chain reaction. The bottom line is, I am accountable for the county. So I have to look at the next person down the road or down the line, which is the principal. So I have to hold the principal accountable. This was his building. He was in charge, and he failed to protect his children. He failed to really pay attention to what was going on in class. He should have known that this behavior was occurring in that classroom, because we were able to kind of figure out that it was common. This wasn't an exception. This was the norm, that what was going on in this classroom. So it then comes to the principal, and the principal has to decide what he's going to do. The principal made a recommendation for the termination of the teacher. Not of the aide, but of the teacher, because the teacher was in charge of her classroom and she failed to protect her children. So the principal made a recommendation for the termination of the teacher, and I upheld that. If he had not made a recommendation for termination of the teacher, I would have made a recommendation for termination of him. And if I had not done that, the board would have made a recommendation for my termination. It just is that simple. Somebody has to be held accountable for that. In that particular lawsuit, we didn't plead guilty. We basically made an offer and said, we'll pay. We don't want to go to court. And normally when you don't want to go to court, it's because you know you're guilty or you're going to lose. And can you imagine what a horrible thing to have to put children through? And it was the incompetence and the irresponsibility of faculty that caused this, or of staff. So needless to say, a lot of people learned valuable lessons from this, but it was the most horrible experience I think I've ever been through. And it was just embarrassing that we could do that we were so irresponsible that we could allow this to happen to a child. So keep this in mind. Think about the unbelievable responsibility you have to every child in your system, and let no child be harmed. That's your responsibility, and you need to take it very serious. Thanks.